So if you haven't already, please help yourself to some trail mix, bottles of water. The trail mix has all of the following ingredients in there, so it's all homemade by yours truly, which is great. Focused on whole foods, right? We just came off of our Whole Foods Pillar 1 week going into Plant Strong and Nutrient Dense, which is lovely because we are very grateful to have Dr. Stoll here with us this evening. Dr. Stoll is on our Medical and Scientific Advisory Board, so if you remember from all the way back when we did orientation for our 28-day challenge, the Health Starts Here program was basically the result of all of these great minds getting together and discussing their research and findings through their own practice. So that's where we got our 4 pillars installed in the Health Starts Here program. As we go into week 2, it is definitely very special to have Dr. Stoll here, but just as last week, really focused on creating those action-oriented goals that are going to be related to those pillars, okay? So really focusing on how are we going to incorporate some more plants. And remember, that's not vegetable strong, it's plant strong. So that means vegetables, of course, but also fruits, whole grains, beans, and legumes. Okay, so don't forget about those other important groups there as well. Sure, Dr. Stoll is going to touch upon part of that as well. And at the end, we're going to do a big reveal. This is my kind of activity over here. These are all differently portioned various items. Some whole foods that are unprocessed and others that are a little bit more processed. But there'll be a good little lesson at the end, and we're going to reveal the different kind of calorie limits in there as well as nutrient values. So without further ado, welcome Dr. Stoll. So nice to have you here.
So nice to be here. Thank you so much. It's exciting to be here. I don't know if you all know, but I grew up in Fort Collins. Born and raised, I grew up in LaPorte, went to Cash Cooter Elementary, Junior High, Cooter High School, Colorado State University. So this is home for me, and my family's here in the back, my mom and dad, my wife Kristen, and our little baby Faith. And we'll start with the oldest, I had Dawson, who's almost 14, Gabriel, 9, Samuel, sweet Sam, and we have little Joyous. After 3 boys, my wife was overjoyed to have a girl, so she's named Joyous. And we have Elijah and little Faith at the end. So they keep us plenty busy, and lots of people say, well, can kids eat this way? Absolutely. And if you look at my kids, they're healthy and strong. They never get sick. They don't have to ever take antibiotics. We never see the doctor for any infections. They are strong and healthy all day long, all year long. So it's really great evidence that you can eat this way. And they're muscular and strong, so you can get everything you need in a healthy diet, enough food to eat in America. I want to tailor it to what your needs are and your questions. So let me just take a minute and find out why you all are here and how you started this program and what brought you into this Whole Foods. There's some people that are willing to be the first courageous person to share.
Come on, guys. You didn't travel all this way for you to be silent.
I'm trying to get processed food out of my diet.
Right. And what % of the American diet is processed food?
110.
For some diets, true. About 62% of most American diet. Unbelievable, isn't it? Wow. 62%. Food that didn't exist 100 years ago now makes up 62% of our diet today. So,
God bless that.
that's right. That's right. Big business. So that's good. Well, I'll talk more about that. Yes?
I'm here because knowledge is power, and I'm here to make better choices.
Absolutely. You're right. And when you learn and understand, we're going to talk about some interesting things tonight, the science behind food. When you really understand it, and I'm going to talk about how it influences our genetic expression, it is powerful because then you go to pick up food and you start thinking, well, how is this going to affect, my body, my cells, my genes? And even we'll talk about, for people, and especially women, it affects 2nd and 3rd generation children when you eat food. So it has a very powerful effect in our lives, far more than I think we ever anticipated when we started this processed food experiment many years ago. Anyone else? What brought you into Whole Foods to start a 28-day challenge?
I want to lose weight.
Amen.
And we have basically we've been listening to Laura. We've been getting better. And so we just felt like we needed a lot more fine-tuning.
What are some challenges for you in your life, like losing weight? What's been difficult?
Sweets.
Sweets. I'll touch on that today.
Portions.
Portions and sweets. Yeah, we've lost sense of like portions. Even our dinner plate's 33% larger than it used to be. So we've lost all sense of how much things are, and that's why this is so helpful to start to realize what's in food and how many calories. But I'll talk about sweets tonight, and I think that this whole idea of like food addiction and how it influences our brain is a critical component to understanding and gaining freedom from food. So I will touch on that tonight, because that's really important. And that's why 98% of diets fail. 98% of the people that start a diet fail to keep the weight off. At least 40% of people, the most conservative estimates, gain more weight than when they started their diet. And yet, you know, it's almost a $50 billion a year industry, diet industry. Every year, more and more diet books, more promises, more cabbage soup diets. One of my favorites is the tapeworm diet. Have you heard of that one? You swallow a tapeworm and you never have to worry about weight gain again. And then you carry around a friend, right? Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
A very good friend of mine helped me sign up for this class, and she had been going to the gym with me. I was very into going to the gym and working out and all that. And she realized that that's only part of the equation, and so she figured that if I was better informed, had some better eating choices and better food choices, that I could have more of a complete picture of staying healthy.
Absolutely. What do you think is more important, exercise or food and weight management and health? Food. Obviously, we're here, right? Food. Absolutely. I had a friend, 44-year-old physician, lean, looked healthy, busy, active practice, drank coffee, ran all the time, ran marathons. From the outward appearance, he looked like he was healthy. Walking down his hallway on a Monday morning, seeing patients, dropped over dead of heart attack. Tragic. Left his wife and his children, without a husband, without a father. And it's because he was led to believe that if you just stay thin, you're healthy. If you're thin, you're healthy. So he ran, he ate whatever he wanted to eat because he was born genetically where he was thinner, but he was also able to exercise and keep his weight down. And so he was led to believe that if you're thin, you're healthy. And that's one of the misconceptions in our culture today, right? Thin equals healthy. Not always the case. Do you all know people who are thin that have cancer? Yeah? Thin people, you know any thin people that have heart disease, that have catheterizations? Absolutely. We did an immersion just recently in Naples for Whole Foods. And these are, I don't know if you've heard about these, but Whole Foods for their employees will take 150 of their most unhealthy employees, and they have immersions all over the country, and they will pay for their employees to go for 1 week to an immersion. And at the immersion, we teach them all week long about food. What is food, what's in food, how food causes disease, how food reverses disease, how to buy food, cook food, shop for food, prepare food, and how to exercise. And in 1 week, most of the diabetics are off their medications. Most of the high blood pressure medications are stopped. This last immersion, there was a woman with rheumatoid arthritis, and on the first day when I saw her, all of her joints were red and swollen. She couldn't close her hands. By the end of the week, she had no pain and free movement of her hands. 1 week of food. But we also had a woman at this last immersion who was thin. She's from Boulder, Colorado, and height, and she, you know, looking outwardly, she looked like a picture of health in Boulder, Colorado. But she shared with us she was on 9 medications and had cancer twice, 42 years old. So a prime example that thin does not equal healthy. And I think, you know, in our culture with this whole discussion of food today, we've missed the point because all we talk about is obesity, calories, and food, and weight management. And we've missed the bigger picture, which is discussing, you know, food, how it affects our bodies, and health. Because if your goal is health, you will always manage your weight naturally. If your goal is weight management, it's a continual struggle because you're always like playing the roulette game with calories. If I eat this, I can't eat that, it's too many calories, and it's infinitely frustrating. And isn't it? Yes. It is infinitely frustrating. You know, you're looking at this food and think, well, how many calories are in this? And how many, 120 calories in a tablespoon of oil, and I can't have that because I had this morning and it's It's a juggling game and we always lose. And that's why more than 70% of our country is overweight or obese today. You know, in 1970, those numbers were around 15, 20%. So it has increased rapidly during this period of time. And people are frustrated, right? People are frustrated because there's not a clear answer. There's no good leadership. Now we talk about is calorie management and management of calories for weight management, but we don't understand health. And so tonight we'll talk more about that. Let me give you just a little bit of my history, why I'm standing here in Whole Foods, Fort Collins, Colorado, and how I ended up here talking about nutrition. During my undergraduate years at Colorado State University, I was a nutritional science and biochemistry major. And so I learned a lot about nutrition. Now I understand I didn't learn what I needed to learn about nutrition. so I went to medical school at the University of Colorado. Because Colorado State didn't have a medical school, I had to go to the other side and become a buffalo for a few years. So I went to medical school, and we had 4 hours of nutritional education in medical school, and most of that was IV nutrition in the ICU. So essentially, I didn't learn anything in medical school about nutrition. And your doctors, most doctors today, don't understand nutrition. They understand it, what they've tried to do with their own lives, trying to manage their weight, what they've read in the newspaper, but very few of them have ever really had an opportunity to study nutrition. So I graduated from medical school. I went into residency. I was a physical medicine rehabilitation physician, so that's learning to treat patients who have major life changes such as a stroke, heart transplant, amputation, brain injury, spinal cord injury, and then musculoskeletal and sports medicine. And so I ended up going down the musculoskeletal and sports medicine end of the practice. And I started my practice out in Pennsylvania, treating patients as they came in. And I noticed that after a while, I would treat them, they would be grateful, they would come back 6, 8 months later with some other complaint, and their past medical history was growing. I had a heart attack, look at the zipper on my chest where I just had surgery, just finishing up chemotherapy, 3 more medications for blood pressure and cholesterol. I saw one patient, he was a vice president from a pharmaceutical company, ironically enough, who had high cholesterol, was given Lipitor for his high cholesterol and suffered one of the side effects, which is it injures the nerves in your legs. And he ended up with horrific pain in his legs from the nerve injury, and was on methadone when he came to see me for pain and on disability because he had high cholesterol. So I saw this growing volume of disease in practice, and they were all telling me the same thing. They were saying, Dr. Stoll, can't you help me? I'm falling apart. You ever heard that before? Every family gets together, right? Everybody says they're falling apart. And so I asked myself, what am I doing to help put people back together again? And I had the answer. Nothing. I wasn't. I was doing what I was taught in medical school and residency, was to take out your prescription pad. There's your solution, Mr. Smith. Here's your high blood pressure solution, here's your cholesterol solution, here's your solution for pain, here's your solution for inflammation. It's only pills. Pills, shots of cortisone, maybe some therapy. That's all the industry has to offer. And then if you get really bad, you get surgery. So I wasn't doing anything to fix anybody. And I felt really bad about that. And I asked myself, Scott, what are you going to do about this? And so I went home, and I started doing research, and I didn't know where to start. I looked because I read in the recent literature, well, maybe it's a hormone imbalance, right? Testosterone, growth hormone. So I spent a lot of time and money researching that, and what I found out on the far end of that, I don't know if you've seen in the flight magazines, they have the Cenogenics guys. Have you seen that? The guy that looks, he has a 7-year-old head and a 20-year-old body. I went to Cenogenics and I studied that whole hormonal replacement because I thought maybe that's the answer. And when I was there, I saw that they were treating the side effects of the hormone replacement with more drugs. I thought, well, this can't be the answer. People are spending thousands of dollars every month, and they're taking all these hormones and they have side effects. So that's not the solution for America. So then I went back and I started reading diet books because I didn't know. I thought, well, maybe nutrition's the answer. And all these people, the South Beach diet, the Zone diet, the Atkins diet, who's right? Because they're all different. And none of them seem to have the long-term solution. So I read all the diet books. I had 200 diet books. I still have them. And I got to the end and I thought, well, I don't know what the answer is. I'm still confused. So then I just started going back to the literature. I started reading articles. I ended up reading 10,000 articles. I have a computer with files full of all these articles. And I started coming back to the same common thread. More plants, better health, stable weight. And that was a common thread that I saw throughout all of these articles. And so then I said, well, maybe that's the simple answer, isn't it? We just change our diet. We get rid of the 62% of our diet that's processed food. We start adding in plants. Maybe that is what our bodies need. So then I started spending time with physicians like Dr. Furman out in New Jersey. And I went and I saw how he practiced medicine, and his patients were getting better. I saw a man that started his practice with him at 60. The man was 80 now. And he got off all of his medications, lost a whole bunch of weight, and at 80, he was in better shape than when he was 60. The only thing he had done was change his diet. It's not revolutionary, it's just diet change, getting back to the natural foods that we used to eat many, many years ago. So I took some of these basic principles into my practice, and I started working with patients. And actually, I took out my prescription pad, and I would write on there, here's your smoothie for breakfast, kale, strawberry. That was what I gave people. And some patients still bring those back. They said, you gave this to me. And you know what I saw? People started getting better. I had diabetics that would come back and say, you know what? I started eating this way, and I was able to stop my medications, and my endocrinologist discharged me. And they would come back and say, I was able to stop my blood pressure medication. Just recently, I had a husband that came with his wife, and I told his wife what to do, and he sat in the corner, and he listened and did more than his wife did. And when he came back, he was sitting in the corner smiling. And at the end of the visit, he said, can I talk now? I said, sure, go ahead. And this is a guy that you would not picture to change his diet. The first time I saw him, he comes in, he's about 65 years old, a black t-shirt, combat boots, jeans, overweight. I mean, not somebody you think is going to really radically shift their diet. But he says, you know what, I listened to what you said, and he said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, so I changed my diet. And I said, well, what do you do? He says, I'm a vegan now. I said, you're a vegan? He said, you know what? I had to do something. And he said, before I started eating healthy food, plant food, he said, I couldn't walk to my mailbox without having chest pain. My diabetes was out of control. I was on a whole bunch of medications. It was costing us tremendous amounts of money. He said, now just 3 months later, I have no chest pain. I can walk for a mile. My endocrinologist discharged me. I'm off my blood pressure medication. And I'm hoping to get off my cholesterol medication. And he said, I feel like I'm 18. I said, wow, that's unbelievable. And I said, what did you do? Because I didn't tell him anything. He said, I just got up and I started eating healthy food, living food every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And his wife said, it's true, I can't even cook for him anymore. And he did it, and this is a guy that I didn't even give him like a cookbook. I didn't tell him anything. He just figured it out because he needed to make a change in his life. And so it's people like that that inspire me that this can be a solution for anybody. If this guy can do it, anybody can do it. But it was because he was mentally ready to make the change. He had weighed the consequences in his mind of making a change or not making a change. And he saw that he was at a tipping point in his life where he did not make a change. He was going to face more of the same, which was more money out of pocket for expensive drugs and healthcare, more pain, more suffering, and no quality of life. Or I give up some of the foods that I used to really enjoy, and I start eating these other foods, which he's learned he enjoyed, and see my life transformed. And so for him, the things to be gained outweighed the cost of giving up the food. And this is a really important point that I want to make right now, that for so many people in America, and I encounter this, that food is more important than their life. Do you know anybody like that? I live to eat. We hear it right? And they do, and unfortunately they live to eat, which leads them to an early death and pain and suffering. And I encounter people in my practice that will come in and I will tell them, this is the simple solution. I will help you. Here's a cookbook. Let me tell you what you need to eat. And they say, Dr. Stoll, I can't do it. Which means I don't want to do it because they can do it. But they say, I can't give up X, Y, Z. Can't give up my things I love, my sugar, my sweets, my fatty foods, I can't give those up. And they leave my office, and I know where they're going to end up because they love their food more than they love their life. And unfortunately, that food is going to cost them severely in their lifetime. So I like to encourage people, when we're talking about making healthy changes, there are foods that we love. But like my wife says sometimes, she says, I loved them for how many years, I enjoyed them, but now I've put them aside, and I'm going to learn to enjoy other foods, but I'm going to learn to love my life. I'm going to love to live for my children. I'm going to love to live passionately for things that I enjoy, and the food will support my life. And so it's important, as you're starting to think about this, to step back in your life and say, what is it that I live for? And what's most important to me? What is it that passionately drives me in life? And then put it in context of food. Food supports that aspect of your life. Food is not everything in life. Because once you can gain that perspective, it gives you a separation from food so that takes some of the power of food out of your life. Because food holds us so powerfully, doesn't it? We have to understand and recognize the power of food in our lives, because it is far more powerful than just calories and weight management and taste. Food brings people together around the table, so it has power of relationships. Food has incredible power in our brains with food addiction. Did you know that in rats that are given cocaine, it makes them addicted to cocaine, and they're given a choice to continue taking cocaine or choosing sugar? What do they choose? Sugar over cocaine. Isn't that unbelievable? A rat will choose sugar over continued cocaine. And when the rats that are on cocaine go into withdrawal symptoms, they can treat the withdrawal symptoms with sugar. Why is that? How does that work? Isn't that unbelievable? It works because in our brain, it's called the dopamine reward system. The dopamine receptors in our brain are the same receptors that are acted upon by sugar, salt, and fat, opioid drugs, narcotics, marijuana, caffeine, tobacco, and nicotine. They all work on the same dopamine system. So when a drug addict is taking drugs, they get a dopamine hit. They take the drug, they get a hit from the drug, it releases dopamine in their brain, and they feel good for a short time, right? And then they start to come down off the drug, they feel bad again, they take the drug, they feel good again, right? And usually they're covering up pain in their life, right, by taking drugs. There's an escape mechanism for the drugs. Same thing happens with food. When we eat sugar, fat, salt, 62% of our diet is processed. When we eat those foods, it works in the dopamine receptors, gives us a hit, we feel good, we feel better, gives us energy, we go on with our lives, we start to withdraw from food. Because 62% of our diet is processed food. We start to feel tired, we start to feel irritable, we start to have headaches, mental fuzziness, right? All withdrawal symptoms from drugs, irritability. We eat the food again, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I need a cup of coffee, I need a Snickers bar, I need some sugar. You eat the food, you get a little hit, you feel better, you go on till dinner time. So it's food addiction that motivates eating decisions. And it's an incredibly powerful system that we don't know of as consumers, but believe it or not, the industry knows this. And the industry creates foods to be addictive. There's a great book called The End of Overeating by Dr. David Kessler, who used to be the director of the FDA. And he wrote a book and did a lot of research into the addictive nature of food and how industry has created foods to prey upon our brains so that we will take out our wallets and buy the food again. And he quotes in there Frito-Lay and several other, Nabisco, several other companies that have research scientists looking to make food, they call it the hedonistic point, make food as pleasurable as possible. And in fact, some researchers went to Philip Morris, cigarette makers, to inquire, how do we make food addictive? How do we get people hooked on food? So the 62% of our diet, this processed food, actually works not only against our bodies, but against our brains, so that we become addicted to food. So we're a nation of food addicts, and we don't know it. You know, the people that are drug addicts, they know that what they're doing is bad for their bodies and why they're doing it. But most people in America, we're eating the foods that are presented to us. We eat them, but then we become addicts, unaware. And it's a great tragedy. So this is one of the reasons that diets fail today, because very few diet books ever tell you that food is so powerful, and some people are so susceptible to food addictions that when you stop your diet and you start transitioning back to foods that you used to eat because you hit your weight goal and you feel a lot better, then you start adding some of those other foods back in, you start getting drawn back into the food addictive cycle, and a once a week becomes a 3 times a week, becomes a 5 times a week, becomes every day. Before you know it, you've been sucked back into old eating patterns once again, and the food overcomes you. And then we feel bad because we failed once again to keep weight off. And in feeling bad, we know if I eat some food, I'll feel a little bit better. And what are the foods we usually eat when we feel bad? It's not kale, is it? We don't reach for a bunch of kale when we feel bad. What do we reach for? Ice cream, sugar, fats, sweet things, right? And then the interesting thing about the brain chemistry, when we eat these foods and it gives us a good hit, you know what it suppresses on the backside? It suppresses serotonin and the GABA receptors. And when you suppress those, that leads to feelings of depression. The drugs we give people for depression, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, increase serotonin. So when we're eating all these sugar, all these fatty foods, all these salty foods because we don't feel good, we feel good temporarily, but we're actually injuring ourselves long term because we're suppressing all of the brain chemistry that leads to a normal feeling mood. And probably is one reason we see this growing trend of antidepressant use in our country, because physically people feel better. One of the most amazing things is when people change their diet, they feel good, their mood changes. It's incredible. And it's because it works on your brain chemistry on an ongoing daily basis. So food addiction is one of those powers of food that draws us back into these cycles of eating and binge eating and secretive eating that leads to weight gain, feelings of failure, and poor health, which is really the most important thing. Weight gain is only a symptom of a body that's not healthy. And so I always encourage people, forget about your weight, focus on getting healthy, and your weight will follow. It always does. You'll never have to worry about your weight again. You'll never have to step onto a scale again if you focus on just trying to eat healthy and get your body healthy. If that's your goal, you'll never have to worry about weight management, which is a great freedom, isn't it? You never have to think, I'm 20 pounds overweight, now what am I going to do? It's January 2nd. What diet am I going to start? How am I going to sacrifice? What am I going to give up? How am I going to abuse myself, exercising to lose that extra 20 pounds? You don't have to do that. Because your body will find its natural weight when you're healthy, and it doesn't change. It is the most amazing thing. Dr. Furman, who's been doing this for 30 years, that his weight has not changed in 30 years. So your body has this natural intelligence. When you're eating healthy food, some days you eat more, some days you eat less because you learn to listen to your body, and your weight never changes because it learns to manage itself. And so the wonderful thing about this is you'll never have to worry about managing your weight ever again. So food is very powerful. We have to give it its due justice, because if we don't understand the power, if we don't recognize that food is powerful, if we don't recognize that it has the ability to draw us in, that it is addictive, that industry knows it's addictive and creates those addictive foods, if we don't give food its proper place in our lives, then we're always going to be struggling against it. And a beautiful thing about food is that it has been created to satisfy our bodies. Good food tastes wonderful, and taste is important, so you don't have to sacrifice taste, because it should be enjoyable. A good, healthy meal should be enjoyable. And I think you'll find as you start shifting your diet, that food is far more enjoyable than the processed junk food that we eat in America. know, the taste that we experience when we're not eating healthy food is pretty much salt, right? Meat is kind of salty. It doesn't have, you know, it's grilled in salted flavors. We have fat, saturated fat, and sweet, but you don't have too many other flavors that you really taste. But when you expand into this healthy eating arena, the tastes are so abundant and so beautiful and so enjoyable and such variety that it's exciting. Every meal becomes an exciting experience, and that's the way it should be. So often people think that I have to give up and just chew on leaves of kale and lettuce to be healthy. That's not true. It should be fun and enjoyable. And that's what, you know, Laura's here to do, is to help you recognize and learn that you can make eating healthy a wonderful, pleasurable experience. But it is fun. It's exciting to see that you know, lives change by eating such healthy food. One other area that food is so powerful in our lives is that when we're not eating healthy food, our bodies are deficient in nutrients. And so your cells, if you imagine your little cells are like little factories, and every factory requires certain products to come into the factory. There are things that have to go on inside the factory to produce an end product and a result, right? So we have raw materials in to produce some service or product on the backside. So every one of your 100 trillion cells in your body is like these little factories. On the raw product end that goes inside the cell, and obviously we need protein, carbohydrate, and fat. Those are important in our bodies. But your cells need all these micronutrients to maintain their health. They need vitamins, they need minerals. Your body needs over 60 minerals to be healthy. You need antioxidants, and you need phytochemicals to keep your body healthy. Now, phytochemicals are little chemicals that occur naturally in plants, and they actually help to keep plants healthy. They help plants fight off infections. They help plants fight off UV ray damage. They give plants strength, and they confer the same benefit in your own body. These phytochemicals have a hormonal effect in our body that's positive. They help to fight damage of UV light and oxidative stress, repairing the DNA. They have an effective antibacterial, antiviral. They strengthen your immune system. So all these beautiful things that occur in plants give your body strength, and your cells strength, and they heal your body from the inside out. So if we're not getting those from eating a plant-strong diet, and we're eating 62% of our diet from processed food, 25% from animal products, which are not real animals today, are they? Quick commentary on that is that, the mad cow disease, you know why that was occurring? Because they were feeding cows cow parts. They were taking the leftover cow parts in the packing plant, grinding them up, making food, and feeding them back to the cows. And these slow viruses come from cannibalism. That's why a lot of cannibals would get these slow virus diseases, because they were eating what you shouldn't eat. And so, the animals that we have today are not animals out free range, eating grass, wild grass, not pesticide filled, not eating like chickens out scratching around. They're cooped up, fed all kinds of food, and shot full of antibiotics. So 25% of our diet comes from that. 12% is plant-based food, but at least half of that category are condiments, ketchup, potatoes. So we're getting like no micronutrients into our bodies. And so when your body is deficient in micronutrients, minerals, vitamins, antioxidants, it triggers the hunger cycle. And so you feel hungry. Your body is saying, we need some of those things into these little cells, these 100 trillion factories, to keep things going, to fight damage and repair the damage and keep things running optimally. So when we don't understand that that's what our body needs, we grab something else that's convenient, right? Because convenience drives food choices, costs drive food choices today. And so those things that are convenient, cost-effective, and available, processed food or fast food. So we fill our bodies up, we satisfy a caloric need, we feel full temporarily, but then we have nutrient deficiency that continues, which drives us back to eat again. So we're eating, we're never fully satisfied, and we're driven into this hunger cycle. So it's food addiction, it's nutrient deficiency, and then it's the toxic withdrawal from food that drives us to eat food and not satisfy our cells' needs. And that is why people fail today in their diets. It's amazing, isn't it? But when people eat healthy food, if we think about the opposite, when they eat plant-based food, wonderful meal rich in vegetables and plants and nuts and beans and legumes and all these things, and made with beautiful spices so it tastes good, their body gets all those phytochemicals and antioxidants. It starts to fill up the tanks again, and you eat and you feel satisfied. There's no hunger. It starts 2 or 3 hours later. And you can go, a full day without eating and not be hungry. In fact, do you know how long you can go without food and still live? 40 days. Isn't that unbelievable? How long do most people go without food without feeling lousy? 2-3 hours, right? What do people say? Yeah. People say, what do they say today? Boy, I've got to get some food. I don't think I'm going to make it, right? This is like right after a big breakfast. But it's not that they need food, is it? They're not going to die. Calorically, they're not going to die. And most of us can go a long time without eating. So it's not that their body is needing calories, but it's because they're needing nutrients, they're hungry, they're toxic withdrawal, and they're withdrawing from food. That's what's driving all their eating decisions on a daily basis. It's powerful, isn't it? So the exciting thing is you can gain freedom from all of that. Once you start eating this way, you start making this shift and you get rid of all of that processed food out of your diet, and it can be a little painful at first, this withdrawal that you undergo when you get rid of processed food. We had a guy named Danny, 21-year-old guy, type 1 diabetic, very heavy, very unhealthy, at our last immersion. And for 2 days, vomiting, diarrhea, felt lousy. It wasn't the flu, it was food withdrawal and detoxification. That's how powerful it is. You feel absolutely lousy. It's like the drug addict is going through withdrawal. They go through the DTs, they start shaking, they sweat, they get sick, you feel terrible, but it's your body purging all of those toxins in your food and going through withdrawals from all the sugar, salt, and fat. In fact, when we're lecturing the first 2 days at those immersions, you look out, the first day, people are trying to stay awake, and it's because they're going to withdrawal. By the end of the week, the faces are different, the energy is different, they're awake and alert, and it's just been food that's changed, nothing else. So there is some pain that goes with this when you start giving these foods up, and just be aware of that it's food withdrawal, it's trying to draw you back, it's trying to hold you captive, and you're trying to break the chains so that you can gain freedom and move forward. And if you understand it in that context, you'll not be drawn back to satisfy that withdrawal with some of the foods that will make you feel good. As you get rid of those foods and you start eating these other foods, there's a new energy that comes into your body. Most people say they wake up earlier, they wake up feeling good, they're ready for the day. They have energy and strength throughout the day. They don't have that lull in the afternoon looking for a cup of coffee. They feel good because they're eating the foods that their body requires to maintain health. And then your body starts stripping away all of the fat because it doesn't have to hold fat anymore. Do you know what your fat stores? Do you know what this? It stores toxins. Your fat stores pesticides and toxins in your body. And so a lot of times when you don't have antioxidants, phytochemicals, and nutrients, your body cannot get rid of the fat because it can't process those toxins adequately without causing harm. When people get healthy, they're able to get rid of their fat. So a lot of times you'll hold fat on your body when you're unhealthy. Another reason that you hold fat on your body is something called angiogenesis. This is an exciting area of research that our body normally produces little blood vessels, that if you injure tissue, it grows blood vessels to bring supplies in to heal the tissue. When that process is done, the blood vessels die back and the tissue is healthy. When we're unhealthy, this process becomes dysregulated. So in injured tissue, you don't grow enough blood vessels to supply the tissue, you don't have enough nutrients, and so you get a poorly healed tissue, and you get partially unhealed tissue. And when they look at like arthritic joints and degenerative tendons, you can see these abnormal vessels and a degenerated tissue that's supplying these tendons. So part of the chronic tennis elbow, chronic arthritis symptom is this dysregulated angiogenesis that comes from all of that. Angiogenesis also is critical in cancer. All of us have cancer cells. In fact, they estimate by the age of 80, 100% of us will have cancer cells in our thyroid. Most of us have cancer cells that come up on a daily basis, but they don't cause us harm because our body takes care of them, and they don't go to the critical step of growing and reproducing and metastasizing. The critical step in cancer metastasis is this angiogenesis step. When the little cancer cell is sitting there, not causing you any harm, it secretes growth factors down to the blood vessel, causing the blood vessel to grow new vessels up into the cancer cell, supplying the cancer cell now like a 4-lane highway with everything it needs to grow rapidly. So the cancer cells grow rapidly and expand, and then because they have return vessels into the main system, little cells can drop off and metastasize via your blood vessel system to other parts of your body. So there's an angiogenesis foundation which is looking to try and create some intervention for people with cancer to cut off that angiogenesis step. But something exciting is that they did research on foods to find out how does food affect angiogenesis. And they found that the foods that promote unhealthy or dysregulated angiogenesis, sugar, saturated fat, caffeine, tobacco, stress, inactivity. Those are all the things that promoted dysregulated angiogenesis, leading to a risk for cancer. The other thing that causes increased angiogenesis is increased fat on your body, because fat secretes estrogen and leads to abnormal angiogenesis. So when you have too much fat in your body, it increases your risk for cancer because it's promoting an abnormal angiogenesis cycle. Now the foods that cut off the blood supply to cancer cells and that regulate angiogenesis appropriately: kale, bok choy, collard greens, turmeric, ginger, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, bok choy, all of the wonderful vegetables that you see on the ANDI scores over here in Whole Foods. Same exact list, verified by the angiogenesis teaching for the Angiogenesis Foundation. So it's exciting because it's confirmation from a whole nother area of research that these foods promote a healthy body and they regulate angiogenesis in such a way that it would prevent cancer, and in many cases, if early cancer is starting, would cut those off and promote a healthy environment and prevent cancer from growing at a rapid rate. Once you get cancer, it's an all-out war. Sometimes food is enough, sometimes it's not. So you don't ever want to get to that step. So fat on your body promotes angiogenesis, leading to increased cancer risk, holds in toxins, and causes a lot of problems in our body. It promotes inflammation as well. So fat is not benign tissue. We joke about fat, we say it's a spare tire, I've got some saddlebags. You know, we talk about fat as kind of this benign thing that's on our body, but it's actually working against your health, promoting pro-cancerous environments and a lot of other problems. So it's important then to focus on getting healthy. And this is why I think we see this rising level of diseases in our culture, because we have people that are getting heavier. In 30% of our states today, 30% of the kids are obese. Not just overweight, but obese, which is a great tragedy. And when we understand how food affects their genes, it's an even greater tragedy. There's an area of research called epigenetics. And what, just stepping back for just a minute, when we look at our genes are not our destiny, as we once believed. You know, we all believe that when we're born, we get 23 chromosomes from mom and 23 from dad, put them together, and that's me for the rest of my life. Some of those genes do, like hair color and eye color, those things don't change. Most of the genes, especially when we look at diseases, are flexible and they're shaped by our environment. And this is an area that is really growing rapidly in research, because we're finding that the things we're exposed to, our lifestyle, the decisions we make, change our genetic expression and change our destiny along the way. So decisions like activity levels, decisions about stress, decisions about toxic exposures, because toxins and even the BPA in bottles affect your genetic expression. All of those things, the food you eat, the sleep you get, they affect your genetic expression and will either reveal susceptible areas of disease on your genes to lead to an expression of that disease, or they cover it up and they protect it. So it's really powerful to understand this epigenetics. And all of us are given different genes, and we have different susceptibilities. And these areas on these genes are variable. And you receive them from your family members. Some people receive genes and it makes them very susceptible to weight gain, some very susceptible to food addictions. There's a woman in our church that says that she cannot eat 1 teaspoon or a bite of sugar without setting up a binge cycle for her. So she understands the power of food in her life, and she says, I cannot have even 1 bite because it's so destructive in her life. And she's chosen not to do that. She looks for alternatives. So these areas of genetics are very individual in our lives. And some people are extremely susceptible to like brain diseases like Alzheimer's, some to heart disease, some to diabetes. So you have to kind of look at your family tree and figure out where you find your susceptible areas. But the exciting thing is that that does not have to be played out in your life. Even in identical twins, when they study identical twins, none of the diseases go beyond 50–60%. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes. So here's 2 twins, identical genetic material. One will get heart disease, one does not. One will get Alzheimer's, one does not. One gets diabetes, one does not. It's because of epigenetics, of the environment influencing the genetic expression. So one of the exciting things is that food has the greatest effect on your genes of any of the lifestyle factors. Stress is important. Certainly don't underestimate stress. Toxic exposures are important. But it's the food you eat that provide the little chemical structures that help to stabilize and tighten up and hold the genes tight. Now, if you're not getting those from your food, they're called methyl. It's a chemical structure that adds on to the DNA that holds it, coils it, and keeps it tight so that it doesn't lead to expression. If you're not getting these methyl groups from your food, you don't get them from anywhere else. When you get them and you eat them, it tightens and protects your genes and allows protection, disease protection, to occur in your life. Do you know where you get those methyl groups? Plants from foods. It's the only place you can get them. You can't get them from meat, you can't get them from dairy, you can't get them from oils. They have to come from plants. And when people eat these foods, it confers protection and they don't get sick. And so the epigenetics researchers have done a whole bunch of research on food, and they came up with a list of foods that confer the greatest protection for epigenetic related diseases. And guess what the list is? Kale, collard, bok choy, broccoli, asparagus, berries, turmeric, ginger. It's the same list. The same list as the Andy scores, the same list as the Angiogenesis Foundation. So the exciting thing is that when we look at the vast amount of research out there, even from differing groups of researchers, it all comes to the same conclusion that if you want to be healthy, if you want to gain freedom from food addictions, if you want to have normal weight, not have to ever worry about it again, have wonderful energy, vitality, strength, it's just a plant strong diet. So we spend all this time and effort and research, and the answer is really simple. I always think about it on one end, the solution is simple. It's just returning to a plant-strong, nutrient-dense diet. It's not rocket science. I'm not talking about today, understanding a single comprehensive theory for the universe. It's not that complicated. It's a simple solution. We can talk about the complexities of it, food addiction, and epigenetics, and angiogenesis, and all the other research we could talk about for food, but the solution and the answer is simple. When we get up for breakfast, what do we eat? At my house, we have a smoothie. We put in some strawberries and some blueberries. We put in a little bit of pomegranate juice, a bunch of kale, blend it up, and that's what we have for breakfast every morning. And the kids drink it, and they love it. Then the next decision is, what do I have for lunch? And so you decide, I'm going to eat some healthy living food. So I take some leftovers from the night before, some kind of a super stew. I have some leafy greens that I take with me. I'll have some raw vegetables, pepper, cucumbers, some carrots, and that's what I eat for lunch. And then for dinner time, next decision, what do I have for dinner? My wife has this wonderful cookbook, and on the back there's this plate. And if you imagine half the plate is leafy green vegetables. So you find some kind of leafy green something to eat. And there's lots of varieties and lots of ways to make it good. It doesn't have to be just a pile of lettuce. You know, that gets old for all of us, right? Variety is the spice of life. So as you change your diet, you have to have variety. Otherwise, it gets pretty old pretty quick. Pile of romaine lettuce, you can't do that a long time. All of us get bored of that. So you have to create some nice, fun varieties that are easy. 20% of your other part of your plate is some cooked dish. You know, it's a bean, lentil, some kind of stew, soup, some kind of casserole, something good. And there's wonderful ways to cook it, easy things to do. Another 20% is a steamed vegetable. You know, choose something that you enjoy. We had asparagus for dinner tonight. Cauliflower, something you like. And then a little bit of fruit. And that's life. That's how you live your food. You live your day, that's how you live, and you just make good choices. And it's really, it sounds complex, it sounds scary to give up some of those things because that's food holding us, you know, it's our fears that hold us back so often. You know, we all often think about food like, oh, I can't imagine living without, you know, grandma's chocolate pie. But you know what, if you want to have grandma's chocolate pie once a year, go ahead and have grandma's chocolate pie once a year, but don't have it every week. So you don't, you know, you don't have to like radically shift and say, I'll never eat that again. Some things true, you don't want to eat those double cheeseburgers ever again. That's not good for you. But you just make a shift and you eat healthy foods, and it's just a meal by meal decision. And you know, like even my oldest son Dawson will say, he'll look at food and he'll say, boy, you know, I choose not to eat that because I know what it's going to do to my body. So like you said in the beginning, knowledge is power. When you understand how food affects us, the knowledge will help to give you freedom. And sometimes we have to walk away because food is that powerful. You know, if you linger, food will draw you in. If you have food in the refrigerator or the freezer, you'll eat it. I'll eat it. All of us have that running thing in our brain, don't we? The chocolate chips are in the lower back third of the freezer, right? We know it's there. I know the chocolate is, all of us do that. It's how powerful food is. So you gotta get it out of your house. You can't have it in your house. If you have it in your house, it will end up in your mouth and it will become part of your cells. If it's there, you gotta get rid of it. You can't buy those things. If you put it in your shopping cart, you can be guaranteed it's going in your body. All of it. You know, we play these games sometimes with food. We say, well, I'll buy it, I will only eat part of it. It all ends up in our bodies, doesn't it? It's the way that it is, because we nibble on it, we snack on it, just a little bit now, I'll just have a little bit tomorrow. It ends up in our bodies. It's just the way we are as humans. We have to understand our frailties and our susceptibilities and protect ourselves. Just get it out of the house. If you choose to have it at Thanksgiving or Christmas, that's okay, but don't have it in your house. If they offer to send home a bunch of stuff with you at Christmas, say, no, thanks, you keep it. I enjoyed it this time, but I don't need it the next few days. Because it can draw you back into those addictive cycles if you're susceptible.
Dr. Stoll, I was wondering if we could just open it up for some
Yes,
questions.
let's do that, absolutely.
We've covered some great territory, and I'm sure a lot of you have jotted down some questions during this time, so we've got a few minutes left.
Could you talk about protein in terms
Yes.
of it's been a huge fad, what it does to your body, why you lose so much weight so quickly but can't keep it off?
The reason you lose weight with high protein diets is it makes you acidotic. So in our bodies, we have a normal pH. That's the measure of our acid and alkaline balance right in our body, back to chemistry. So our body likes to live at a very strict pH, 7.35 to 7.42. That's where your body has to maintain your blood in order for everything to work correctly. When you eat a lot of protein, protein is a high acidic load. So it makes you more acidotic. It makes you an acid person. When you do that, your body starts to strip off weight because it's burning up the calories. But acidosis is not good for you long term. In fact, if you go to an emergency room, somebody that's critically ill, they tend to be acidotic, so when we give them bicarb IV to make them more alkaline to try and save their body. So your body does not like to live in an acidotic state. It's not natural. It damages your kidneys, leads to inflammation, causes a lot of harm. And so doing a high protein diet long term will damage your health. You can lose weight, absolutely, but most people gain weight back because they can't eat that much protein all the time. You don't feel good when you eat those. You know, you're retaining water. Has anybody been on a high protein diet in this room? Atkins or otherwise, the high protein? How did you feel?
Actually, I felt really well with it. I didn't have a problem.
And did you
I don't have weight loss. That's where I'm at.
Okay. The downside of high protein diet, like we talked about micronutrients, you don't get those in your diet. It's deficient. And it tends to be high fat, which we know high saturated fat is linked to lots of other disease risks. So it's not a long-term, it's not a diet that will maintain your health. You'll lose weight, but you won't maintain your health. And if you look at skin, if you look at people's skin, it's a good marker of their health. And if you start to look around, you look at people's, like the palms of their hand, mine are kind of orange because it's all the micronutrients in my skin. But if you look at their skin, people that are sick have a real pale complexion. If you look at their hands, they have no orange, no carotenoids in their skin. So high protein, not a good long-term strategy for weight loss. Where do you get protein if you eat this way? Do you know what percent of all plants is protein? 10 to 15%. Every single plant, including lettuce, has protein. Did you know that broccoli per calorie has more protein than steak? Isn't that unbelievable? So if you're getting sufficient calories, if you were just going to be a vegan and you're eating plants, you would have sufficient protein in your diet by all the measurement standards of protein. So 3 ounces of almonds, 18 grams of protein, more than 3 ounces of fish, chicken, or steak. So if you're getting beans, lentils, chickpeas, nuts, seeds, leafy green vegetables, you will be sufficient in your protein stores. Absolutely.
What do you feel the importance is with organic versus conventional?
If you can afford it, organic is superior to conventional in several ways. They've done studies on antioxidant phytochemical levels in organic versus conventional, and more than 50% difference. So those are things that make you healthy versus the conventional. Mineral content far superior in the organic versus conventional. Some of the vitamins are not that different. And so some studies, they'll say, well, there's no difference between organic and conventional because they're measuring vitamin C, vitamin E, and there may not be a difference, but there's other things that you get. Also, we have to look at pesticide load. Pesticides are something that, nobody really understands. When they measure human fat, we all have 600 different pesticides and chemicals in our bodies measuring fat. So this is a grand experiment that nobody understands how these things are going to affect us long term when you expose yourself to pesticides and chemicals. And for people that have genetic susceptibility, it may be something that's a tipping point for them. So when you can, organic. Frozen is absolutely fine, sometimes more nutritious than fresh. So you can do frozen, it's a good way to store things. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the natural weight. Is there any way to estimate what it should be?
The natural weight of your body? You don't have to really, it's not a number, but it's just it's better to just pinch. If you can pinch more than an inch, around your waist, then you probably still need to lose some weight. Because people's weight is different, because some people have big bone structures, other people have small bony structures, and so it's really difficult. Even the weights that they use for all the insurance measurements are variable. And in fact, I have muscle and smaller bone structure, but I'm on the top end of being abnormal in weight, but I have no fat. So I don't worry about weight. Just look at yourself, see how you look. If there's extra fat on your body, then you just need to keep doing what you're doing. Just do the right thing. So,
Another question. I have a layman's, probably not very well understood idea of what protein does for the body. What about carbohydrates?
So carbohydrates serve predominantly in energy, but they also serve in some structural roles too. But carbohydrates, there's like a couple different things to think about carbohydrates. There's like carbohydrates like chips, without fiber, without minerals, without vitamins. When they go into your body, they're rapidly absorbed. They become sugar very quickly, and you get a spike of insulin. Not as good for you. But carbohydrates, like in a piece of fruit, comes packaged with all the minerals, all the vitamins, all the enzymes, and the fiber, and so it has a different effect on your body than a processed carbohydrate.
This is one book I read that says you'll never lose weight unless you totally eliminate carbohydrates.
Right. That's
Agree with
false.
that?
Absolutely not, because I can tell you from the immersion programs and all the thousands of patients I work with who eat fruit, which is a carbohydrate, lose a lot of weight. 120 pounds in a year, not uncommon. Eating 4 or 5 servings of fruit a day, sometimes more. So, and they keep it off, and they're healthy. Average weight loss in a week at the immersion program, where they eat the fruits and beans and other carbohydrate sources, 15 pounds in a week. So it is unbelievable, but it's, you know, that's kind of this mythology that goes with diet in America, because everybody has some opinion. But you know, when we think about what we need to eat just to be healthy and what's around in our environment, it's fruits, it's beans, it's lentils, which are carbohydrates. And when we eat them, it doesn't make us fat. It's when we eat them out of proportion and we're eating, you know, processed carbohydrates. That's probably true.
Yes.
Yes.
You briefly mentioned inactivity in relationship to angiogenesis.
Yes.
Is the biology of that understood, or is it just a correlation that's made statistically?
I don't think they've worked out the full biology of that, but it's based on, you know, the hormonal effects of exercise. It's the hormonal effects and the positive growth hormone effects with exercise that affect the angiogenesis cycle.
So is it fair to say that exercise, if it contributes to this, what the right term is, negative energy balance, if that's the right term, does in fact lead to weight loss?
Exercise will lead, yes. If you know, the weight loss is pretty simple. If you burn more calories than you take in, you'll always lose weight. That's absolutely true. So exercise, you know, it's better to just say it's activity, to be active. Exercise sometimes has a negative connotation where you know, think about sweating at the gym, but it's better to just find something you love to do and do it and be active every day. But that does confer health benefits. Many, many studies.
Okay. Assuming that you are eating healthy plant-based foods and you're diabetic, you have to minimize your fruit.
Yes, if you want to eat fruits, if you're diabetic, you need to eat fruits that are lower glycemic index, so fruits that are not as sweet. So berries, mango, those are things that you eat instead of bananas, dates, all those higher glycemic fruits. And you know, 3 to 4 fruits a day, lower glycemic fruits are fine for a diabetic. Yes, sir.
Combining whole grains and whole beans is a common way to get complete protein.
Correct.
Is there a ratio that is ideal, and then if it isn't, is there any pros and cons of consuming too much of one and not the other? Or?
You know, there's I'd like to make it simple so you don't have to worry about ratios. If you're just eating some, you know, vegetables, some fruits, some beans, some lentils, some whole grains, some nuts and seeds, you don't have to worry about combining foods to get a whole protein, complete protein. It's not necessary to worry about percentages, because you will get all the amino acids that you need, all the branched chain amino acids, everything that your body needs to fabricate all of the proteins in your body from all those different sources. So, you know, if you're using some whole grains and some beans, you can mix those up and create, you know, a dish that tastes good, but not have to worry about mixing those things. But it's better to get the whole grains as close to their natural state as possible, because the more they're processed, the more they have detrimental effects on your body.
Do you know anything about the water filtration systems like Brita that cause water to be more acidic?
Water, we could talk a long time about water. I don't know about the Brita and the acidic water.
Okay. And then my other question would be, how much is alcohol in water for you?
You know, if you're eating this way, if you get rid of processed food, you're eating, you know, smaller amounts of organic animal products, you don't have to worry about alcohol. Your body will be naturally alkaline by the food that you eat, especially the vegetables. So, and sometimes when you drink an alkaline water with a pH of 11, it's probably not good for you because it's not a naturally occurring way that water would, you know, you drink water. As it comes up, spring water, naturally occurring spring water, has a neutral pH, like 7.2, 7.3, which is natural for your body. But a pH of 11, you know, you're doing something to manipulate your physiology again. We don't know what that does long term. So I don't think it's necessary to do that to your health.
And also in Colorado, some of the best tasting water. You're lucky there.
Yes, Matt?
Scott, could you, maybe when I was out, you talked about this, I'm not sure. Can you replicate for them that slide of brown food?
I have this great slide that shows you know, beautiful colored food. So if you imagine purple grapes, you know, red peppers, yellow bananas, green leafy vegetables, you know, all the colors, red raspberries, red strawberries, all the beautiful colors of naturally occurring plant food. And then let's picture in our minds processed American food. What color is it? All brown. Or if it has color, what do they add? A dye. The only color, and the only color with the processed food is the packaging, right? Because our eyes are naturally attracted to color, because color drives some decisions for food choices. That's kind of our natural attraction and connection to food. So because all the processed food in America is brown, the packagers know that in order to sell it, they have to put reds and yellows and greens on the packages to attract us to the package, but we open it up and it's all the same, right? Doesn't that look delicious? Isn't that incredible?
I have a question. You had talked about where in some of your patients that diabetics had gotten off their medicine.
Yes.
Were they type 1 or type 2?
Type 2.
Type 2.
Type 1 you cannot. That's damage to the pancreas. One interesting side note on that, there's several studies now coming out of Scandinavia, not America, because you can't do this, but Scandinavia, showing that early consumption of dairy is probably the tipping point for type 1 diabetics, because the dairy protein is very similar to the pancreas, and so it triggers an immune response in susceptible, disease-susceptible kids with those genetic susceptibilities, and the body attacks the pancreas and kills it.
So the one gentleman that was at your immersion, was he?
He was type 1.
He was
correct.
type 1. Did it
So-
just make him feel better?
And he lowered his insulin dose
Lowered it, okay.
significantly. And lots of insulin long-term has a lot of negative effects on your body too. So, yes.
You were just talking about dairy, and earlier you mentioned that foods can become addicting, and we're not allowed to eat. Well, I'm not eating any dairy on this, and I grew up in the Midwest, and I'm seriously thinking I'm a cheese addict.
Yes.
And how
Do you know why? You know what's in cheese that makes it addicting?
Cocaine.
Yes, morphine. It's a morphine-like substance called casomorphin, and a marijuana-like substance in cheese that makes it addicting.
Well, I love it, and
It doesn't love you, but it doesn't.
and I haven't done any of it. My question is, for during this process, is there anything we can do to stop dreaming about it?
It's hard. Isn't that amazing,
Or how
though?
long will that process
It takes, you know,
go
it
through
can take
detox?
several weeks, it can take a month, it can be very powerful. Don't give in to that because it'll draw you back so quickly. But you know, just the fact that you're like dreaming about it and thinking about it tells you how powerful food is, isn't it? I mean, it's amazing that, you know, this little thing, this cheese, causes you to think about it all day long. Isn't it amazing?
I didn't realize how much I was eating until I became more
Yes,
conscious
exactly.
of
There's a
what I
sliver
was.
here, a little sliver there. Exactly.
So up to a month.
Yes. If you have a juicer, if you juice a lot, that helps to clean things out more quickly. So start juicing lots of leafy greens, and that'll make a difference. But yeah, cheese has morphine-like substances and marijuana-like substances. So when you eat it, you feel good, but that's why it causes constipation. Just like when you take morphine, you get constipated. When you eat a lot of cheese, same effect on the bowels. It causes constipation because of the morphine. Unbelievable, isn't it? And one other thing about cheese has more pesticides than any food you can eat. Because cows eat pesticide-filled food now, right? And pesticides are stored in fat, so it goes into the dairy fat. We milk the cow, then we take the milk and we super condense it into cheese. So you're super condensing all those pesticides into that little cheese. There's more pesticides in cheese than any of DDTs, PCBs, all those things in cheese.
So you're saying if you
Just
eat
tell me what
what you call a plant-strong, nutrient-dense diet, that the result of that will be it affects in a positive way the brain chemicals and reduces food addiction.
Correct.
Still have to talk. I've been changing my diet, but I still have a great deal of trouble controlling quantity, no matter what.
Well, it takes time. I mean,
2 years?
It can take a long time, absolutely. But you think about how long have you been doing this, eating the wrong way? Decades. And so unraveling some of these things and stripping off and getting rid of all this junk in our bodies can take time, years. And then some of us, a percent of those that are genetically susceptible have other issues with, the draw to the sugars and the sweets. And so if that's the case, then you really have to be careful. You just know yourself, know thyself. And if that's yourself, then you have to say, I just need to be very careful. It's something I cannot partake in without sending myself down this destructive road. So we'll talk afterwards, absolutely. Yes, sir.
When you were talking about carbohydrates, you mentioned that our body absorbs that very rapidly. I was curious, with whole foods and with plant-strong diets, do we absorb all the nutrients that are in that food? And if not, is there anything we can do to absorb more nutrients or do a better job of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's when you're eating this way, the combination of foods, you'll absorb what you need, absolutely. And you won't inhibit that. Yes?
Looking at the food addictions, well, drinking more water. Every time you have that idea, drink water.
Have some water, have some leafy greens, have something to give yourself nutrients. Have a smoothie, do something rather than trend toward that food. A smoothie is a great way to do that. It satisfies your cells, it tastes good, it's a little bit sweet because of the fruit, it's enjoyable. So that's it. You drink water, have a smoothie, do something. Grab an apple, do something so that you don't give into that urge.
It kind of goes along with what Dr. Stoll was saying with getting those foods out of your house as well, right? If they're out of the house, then you only have one option of what to reach for, and it's what you have in there. And so if your home is filled with all of those plant-strong, nutrient-dense foods, no matter what you're grabbing for, if you have a little bit of hunger or you do need some extra nutrients, it's going to be, worth the while there as well. Okay. One thing I wanted to add too about the organic and conventional thing is at Whole Foods. If you didn't know, some of our farmers are more local, and gaining that organic seal can be very expensive. So even if it doesn't say organic in the produce department, it might be coming from a farm that actually still farms using organic practices, but just is so small they haven't been able to afford, or it hasn't been 3 years before they've gotten their organic certification. So in order to find that out, definitely take advantage of our produce specialists and ask them if you just have a question. If it looks like it's a local Colorado farm, something like that, but it doesn't say organic, it still might be a farm that uses those practices. It doesn't use pesticides or herbicides or fungicides. So that's kind of a caveat there as well, okay, to keep in mind. Along the same lines with, just to transition here before people have to go, and if there's other questions, I'm sure Dr. Stoll wouldn't mind staying around for 10 or minutes or so, but he does have his entire family here, so be kind. What do you guys think of all the foods on this table? When we're thinking about nutrient density, plant-based foods, we have 16 ounces of spinach here, okay? We have some carrots and hummus, peanut butter, a fig bar, some oil down here, 4 dates, 4 chocolate-covered pretzels, 6 ounces of blackberries, less than a 1/4 cup of granola, 1 medium apple, a small handful of walnuts, and this here, about 20 jelly beans, and then 6 of these lightly salted tortilla chips. Which of any of these items do you think is the most calorie dense? Which has the most calories?
Oil.
The oil. Some people are saying spinach, some people are saying
Calories.
calories?
I say they all.
Bill thinks they're all the same. What do you guys think?
Those quantities.
These are all 100 calorie quantities. What this shows you is the volume that you get. So remember, with this, so the same thing as keeping all of those food items in your home, we're actually asking you to eat more, not less, right? That's a great thing when you're thinking about changing food habits, right? There's no deprivation in that. You can eat more. The difference is you're eating more of those foods that you are commonly eating less of, okay? So yes, you can eat this entire package of spinach or a snack if you would like, okay? Be my guest.
You'll be full, guaranteed.
You definitely will be full, okay? This together, the hummus and carrots, is 100 calories. If you compare that as a snack to something like this, which one is going to keep you more full? The volume is there, right? And even, you know, an entire 6-ounce container of blackberries. Think about how you can mold these into creating better foods. This is what cracks me up. This is 6 individual chips, okay? This is actually less than a serving size on the back of here, okay? Serving size on here is 8 chips for 150 calories, okay? So, how many of you counted out 6 chips when you were eating chips? I doubt it, okay? So this is just that lesson of just think about the volume and keeping those foods in your house, not feeling guilty about eating more, okay? If you're eating more of those foods that your body craves and needs, that's the benefit, and that's a lot of what Dr. Stoll is getting at. The other thing I have for you is just like last week is another Meals for 4 under $15. So there's kind of another set of recipes that you can grab on your way out. So a nice little carry-out, thing to get started on thinking about meals you can prepare this week that will follow all of what Dr. Stoll has, talked about today. How are you going to get those nutrients in there? Okay? How are you going to, change how your genetic profile is displayed for better health? Okay? All of those principles. But I want you all to take this information that you've gained tonight and turn that into some rational thought and put it into your personal life. What are you going to do this week, even if it's just one small thing, that's going to be incorporated into those action-oriented goals that I've been talking so much about, right? I really want me to stop talking about them, but I won't. What will you accomplish by Sunday that will be adding on to your whole foods goal, that pillar, okay, from last week? Is it eating, one of these nutrient-dense meals? Is it going through 16 ounces of spinach this week? Okay? At the end of the week, if this isn't gone, you've got a lot of spinach to eat on Sunday. Right? Whatever it is, remember to make those goals in your little notebook. All right, and then that's it. So we had Dr. Stoll for, an hour, but I don't know if you've got other plans here as well. So maybe we'll take 2 more questions and then we'll all break.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I cannot eat a whole bunch of foods at one time. I can eat only little Mediterranean. So what happens is I can breakfast and 2 hours later I take a snack and in between I can have a whole bunch of food at the breakfast. So is that really okay?
Is it a physical issue with your stomach that you can't eat it, or you get full, or what is the...
I don't know.
Does it make you sick if you eat too much?
My eating habit is like that.
So it's just strictly a habit, there's no physical effects of
No,
eating more?
nothing. It's just I eat very little portion of it.
Physically, it's better to just eat 2 or 3 meals a day and not eat continuously throughout the day.
Well, it's not that I'm eating every hour, like maybe 2-3 hours after I eat. Healthy snack, I don't eat junk food. Mostly, except some chocolate treat.
It's better for your body because your body works naturally with secretion of enzymes and managing blood sugars to deal with the loaded food and then to process it and have time to process it and then have another load at another time. When we eat lots of small meals, it's actually not good for our health. It's a continual strain on your system and your enzymes. It's a continual spiking of your insulin. So it's better to eat, get into more of a habit of having a good smoothie, slowly increasing the amounts as you can at breakfast, and then not eating until lunchtime. That's a healthier way to eat.
What is the difference in hour one should have in a meal? Like if I have breakfast at 7 o'clock.
Ideally, long term, you want to get to the point where you listen to your body. Sometimes you may say, I don't need to eat lunch today because I'm not hungry. That's really the goal. What you can do though is, eat breakfast and if you're not, don't eat anything until lunchtime. So if when I have a smoothie in the morning, I have a smoothie at 5:30 in the morning, and then I don't eat anything until lunch at 12:30, and I'm fine.
So
Busy
just
day.
other drinks like
You can have water.
milk or juice.
Not milk, water. We're not talking about it. No, you can, but yeah, water's fine. A cup of herbal tea is fine. Those things are absolutely fine to do, but yeah, it's better to just get into the habit of eating more at a particular meal and then nothing in between. The snacking will lead us astray too. But you can do it. I mean, these are all the beautiful thing about our lives and our bodies is that we're flexible and adaptable. Our taste buds adapt in, sometimes 15 to 30 days. Your taste buds will all shape and adapt to new tastes. So things that you used to enjoy, you can, learn to enjoy different foods, and you'll enjoy those and be drawn to those foods. And the old foods that you ate, you won't enjoy anymore because that's the adaptability of our taste buds. Same thing with our entire body. It has this amazing ability to adapt. So you can learn by, slowly challenging your system over time to adapt to a new eating style. You don't have physical limitations, and this is just a habitual thing that your body is grown accustomed to. So it's just like weightlifters when they lift weights and they change the weight and they increase the weight and their muscles grow because of adaptation. Same thing with your body. If you slowly change, increasing the amounts, you'll adapt and you'll be back on a new system in 60 to 90 days. So you can do that.
Going off that subject, what if you have to eat several times throughout the day because you start to feel like hungry?
Where do you feel hunger? That's the question. You know where you feel real hunger? You know what that is? Food withdrawal. You know where you feel real hunger? It's a drawing in your throat and it's increased salivation. That's true hunger. Rumbling in the stomach, headaches, feeling weak and tired is withdrawing from food. And you can overcome that. It gets painful. It's a painful symptom, but you can overcome that. True hypoglycemia is very rare. And if you need to evaluate that, you have to have blood tests to see if you're truly hypoglycemic. And there are a few people that are truly hypoglycemic and they need to eat more frequently. But for most people, headaches, rumbling in the stomach, gnawing in the stomach, fatigue, food withdrawal symptoms, try this more frequently.
Even if you're eating all these healthy foods already?
Well, you're getting, the other questions are getting enough calories too. Sometimes people, they're not getting enough calories in a meal. So, I don't know what your diet is, but maybe you can work with Laura on that to look at what you're eating, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and figure out amounts of calories and try to come to some solution. And if you think you're truly hypoglycemic, then have your physician measure your blood work.
Okay. Let's give Dr. Stoll a round of applause. Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful evening. Good luck with your goals this week. I will post this video online as well as tomorrow's education video that I do for the other. Okay? And resources, other handouts will be posted on there as well.
All right.